Welcome up. As I'm recording this, it is the 1st of December, the day in which Romania remembers the Greater Romania, the state as it was in the interwar period. You can see it at my left, and you see how it included several territories today part of the Republic of Moldova, Ukraine, and Bulgaria. As a matter of fact, lots of ethnic Romanians live beyond the borders of what is nowadays Romania. To give you an example, many Moldavians have actually double citizenship and can actually vote at the next Romanian political elections. In fact, on the 6th of December, Romania is renewing its parliament, roughly 1 year after the presidential elections. Last year, the candidate of the National Liberal Party, Klaus Iohannis, was challenged by the former Prime Minister and representative of the Social Democratic Party, Viorica Dăncilă. Iohannis was reconfirmed in an election whose result was somehow expected. And the reason is that the Social Democratic Party underwent a major corruption scandal when its leader de facto, Liviu Dragnea, was jailed under corruption charges in mid-2019. He had been accused of using his influence as a government official to procure fake jobs at a child protection agency for two women working for his party. Dragnea had also been barred from becoming prime minister for a 2016 conviction for vote rigging. Romania has a semi-presidential form of government, and this means that the president and the prime minister share the executive power. After the fall of government Dăncilă, the country has been directed by two subsequent governments, led by Ludovic Orban, a representative of the PNL, the National Liberal Party, meaning that the executive was shared by a president and a prime minister representing the same party. The electoral law of Romania is proportional with closed party list and a threshold of 5% for single parties. The Chamber of Deputies hosts 329 members, meaning that the proportion is roughly one representative per 70,000 people, while the Senate hosts 132 members, meaning that the proportion is one senator per 160,000 individuals. The polls of Politico suggest that the PNL will lead also these elections, with 32% of preferences, shortly followed by the Social Democrats with 27% of votes. So in either case, none of the parties will have the absolute majority. Since I am not a specialist of Romania, today I am assisted by a former colleague and friend, Andrei Jaica, co-founder, chief policy and impact officer at Sporos Platform. Ciao Andrei, welcome up.
Ciao.
Listen, what can you tell us about this electoral campaign?
Let's firstly remember that this will be the fourth time that Romanians are being called to vote in an election in a little over 18 months, with the presidential and European election in 2019 and the local elections in 2020. The big difference in this election is that for the first time in more than 2 decades, the Social Democratic Party, or PSD, will not be starting in a pole position when it comes to winning the popular vote. Secondly, this campaign has also been very different from what Romanians have experienced due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Mass rallies were not allowed, so the media was the only avenue through which political parties could attempt to reach the majority of their voters. However, with dozens of media owners currently being the target of criminal proceedings by anti-corruption units or by the Prosecutor General's office, this has not been very beneficial for Romania's democracy. In fact, according to Reporters Without Borders, the media have gradually been turned into political propaganda tools and have constantly been under surveillance by security services. This is not conducive to a good climate during a political campaign under normal circumstances, let alone during a global pandemic.
There are a few wild cards in this election. In 2016, USR, Uniunea Salvați România, was voted as the third party with 8.9% of votes. But in this election, the party is in coalition with Plus, the Freedom, Unity and Solidarity Party. What can you tell us about them?
I believe that this new alliance, if it holds, has the potential to become the second political power in Romania, replacing the Social Democratic Party. Although the Social Democrats placed second in all 3 previous electoral competitions, the party is facing a battle to maintain this position in front of the fierce competition from USR Plus and continues to lose electoral support since 2017. The PSD party never really fully addressed its historic heritage from the Communist Party internally and usually saved unity by gravitating around a central personality, of which Liviu Dragnea is just the latest example. The USR Plus alliance contains individuals that come from outside Romanian politics, and this appeals to the general public, or have extensive governing experience from abroad, like former European Commissioner Dacian Cioloș. If they do become the second political force of the country, this might represent the final departure of Romania from its historical legacy.
At the previous elections, we saw also the parties Pro-Romania Social Liberal and the People's Movement Party, right?
Both these parties were born out of the same symptom that I mentioned before, which is an over-reliance on strong personalities, in this case former Prime Minister Victor Ponta and former President Traian Băsescu. Considering that these parties and these personalities were at serious odds until not so long ago, it looks more like a union of convenience rather than a new permanent political actor in Romanian politics. I think that with the current political offer, it will be very difficult for these parties to surpass the 5% threshold to gain seats in the parliament, since it is not very clear to voters what their competitive advantage is, aside from the popularity of their leaders. Whether this popularity will even hold within an alliance between the two is also another question that only the polls will be able to answer.
Personally, I have an issue with international news outlets. They tend to refer to the PNL as the only pro-European alternative, but Europe does not mean only center-right. Can you explain us more in detail the attitude of the various parties towards the European Union?
The relationship between Romanian political parties and the European Union has always been difficult and mostly transactional. Many pro-European stances of Romanian parties can be attributed to the country's reliance on Europe's cohesion policy to finance its economy. Let's not forget also that the typical atomization of political systems in Eastern European countries during the transition from a communist regime to a liberal democracy has only recently concluded in Romania. In fact, for a great number of years following the country's accession to the European Union, national parties could not properly identify the European political families within the European Parliament, and you had situations of left parties joining political groups on the right and vice versa. I would say that the only party I could reasonably say that is pro-European on a principle basis is Plus of Dacian Cioloș, because usually this is a characteristic that is required of those who are nominated and approved as European commissioners.
How much is populism rooted in the Romanian political system, and what does this mean for the health of the Romanian state?
Since the breakdown of the former communist regime in December 1989, populism has become an unfortunate feature of Romanian democracy, starting with the right-wing nationalistic populism of Corneliu Vadim Tudor, who combined xenophobia with communist nostalgia and the exaltation of the Romanian people. When in 2000 he posed a significant threat during the presidential elections, it took a coalition of both right-wing and left-wing parties to defeat him, led by top Communist Party official Ion Iliescu of the Social Democratic Party. Following this, it was a Democratic Party that used populist rhetoric, minus the nationalism and the communist nostalgia, while Traian Băsescu of the Liberal Party introduced the concept of the charismatic leader type of populism that had an anti-establishment and anti-elitist base. This appeal to the people with a capital P has been used widely in Romanian politics since then for a wide range of political gains, from favorable appointments to the direction of state TV and radio channels to changes in the electoral law. Surprisingly, though, Romanian populism never based itself on anti-EU rhetoric, even though there are some signs of that in recent times, as it has happened in other former communist European states like Hungary and Poland.
Do you think that Orban has high chances of being re-elected for a new mandate?
Well, the first thing to consider is that the National Liberal Party secured the largest vote share in last year's European election. It won the 2019 presidential election, and it defeated the Social Democratic Party, or PSD, in the 2020 local elections. So the previous three elections demonstrated a consistent pattern that is unlikely to change in the forthcoming legislative elections. I predict that the ruling National Liberal Party will continue their term in office with even a strengthened position, but I do not believe that they will be able to garner enough votes in order to govern alone, so an alliance with USR Plus looks likely.
That's actually interesting, yes.
Aside from party politics, this could actually be an advantage for Romania in 2021, as the European Union's massive 1.8 trillion euros budget and COVID-19 recovery fund, as well as the vaccination program, will require a coordination exercise unlike anything that has ever been seen in that country since the revolution in 1989. Having the entirety of the executive power under a single banner could actually prove advantageous for the country in such historic challenges.
Thank you for your time and help, Andrei.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure preparing this, and I hope that you will have me back soon.
Until next time. So you see that while the results of these elections may be predictable, the implications are far more complex. I'm Understanding Politics. Thank you for watching.